A virgin Mafia boss took bullets to save two little girls. Their mother became his reward. He never expected to wake up and find her by his bedside, this beautiful stranger whose children he'd shielded with his own body. But when his men discover the truth, everything changes. She's not just any single mother. She's the runaway wife of his deadliest enemy, a man who traffics young girls and wants her silenced forever. Now trapped in his fortress-like mansion for protection, the fearsome crime lord who's never been touched finds himself drawn to her strength, while she glimpses unexpected tenderness behind his brutal facade. Just as they surrender to a passion that breaks his sacred vow, she finds evidence that he might have been watching her long before that fateful shooting. Was their meeting really a coincidence, or an elaborate trap years in the making? When bullets start flying and betrayal strikes from within his inner circle, will their dangerous attraction become their salvation, or ensure their destruction at the hands of a man who never forgives what's taken from him? The city's evening lights cast long shadows across the sidewalk as Marcello Ricci stepped out of Bella Rosa, his favorite Italian restaurant. The meeting with the dock workers' union had left a bitter taste in his mouth that even Chef Marco's perfect osso buco couldn't erase. He adjusted his tailored suit jacket, the fabric whispering against his silk shirt, as Paolo, his head of security, scanned the street with practiced efficiency. "All clear, boss," Paolo reported, his hand never far from the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. Two more guards flanked the restaurant's entrance while another pair secured the perimeter of the black Bentley waiting at the curb. Marcello's shoes clicked against the pavement as he walked, each step measured and purposeful. At 32, he carried himself with the weight of his family's legacy, though few remained to share that burden. The Ricci name commanded respect throughout the city, but respect came with a price: isolation. The cool air carried the scent of approaching rain, mixing with the lingering aromas of garlic and wine from the restaurant. Marcello checked his watch, its face gleaming under the streetlights. 9:15. Another evening, alone in his penthouse, awaited him, filled with ledgers and reports rather than warmth or company. The first crack of gunfire shattered the night's quiet. "Down!" Paolo shouted, reaching for Marcello's arm. But Marcello had already spotted them, two tiny figures huddled behind a newspaper stand in the alley, identical pink backpacks making them painfully visible targets. Twin girls, no more than 5, clutching each other as bullets sprayed the brick walls around them. Their matching pigtails trembled as they screamed, too terrified to move from their inadequate shelter. "Boss, no!" Paolo's protest cut through the chaos. But Marcello was already moving. His body acted on instinct, years of training taking over as he sprinted toward the children. Time seemed to slow as he analyzed the situation. Two rival gangs, amateur shooters based on their wild aim, neither group likely aware of his presence. The girls weren't targets, just innocent bystanders caught in someone else's war. Marcello reached the twins in seconds, his broad frame enveloping their small bodies as he pressed them against the wall. "Close your eyes," he commanded softly, feeling them burrow against his chest. Their hearts fluttered like trapped birds against his ribs. The first bullet struck his shoulder, a hot punch that spun him slightly. He gritted his teeth, maintaining his protective stance. The second round found his side, sliding between his ribs with burning precision. The third tore through his thigh, nearly buckling his knee, but he didn't move. Wouldn't move. These children would not die tonight. "Mama!" one of the girls cried out, her voice muffled against his blood-soaked shirt. Through the haze of growing pain, Marcello lifted his head. A woman was running toward them, her face a mask of terror and determination. Her eyes, God, her eyes, green as summer leaves, wide with fear, but fierce with maternal protection. They stirred something in his memory, a fragment of his past he'd thought long buried. His security team had finally mobilized, their return fire more precise and professional than the amateur gangsters. Paolo coordinated the response, while 2 other guards created a protective circle around Marcello and his charges. Oh God, thank you," the mother repeated as she reached them, her hands fluttering between her daughters and their savior. Thank you. Marcello tried to respond, to reassure her, but the world was growing darker at the edges. He felt the warmth of his blood spreading beneath him as his knees finally gave way. The pavement rose to meet him with jarring force. The last thing he registered was the woman's voice, sweet despite its panic, and those eyes that seemed to pierce straight through his carefully constructed walls. They reminded him of his mother's eyes, he realized distantly. He hadn't allowed himself to remember that in 20 years. The twins were still pressed against him, alive and unharmed. That knowledge followed him into the darkness as consciousness slipped away, their mother's gratitude echoing in his fading thoughts. Paolo's voice cut through the gathering blackness, barking orders for medical assistance and secure transport. The security team moved with practiced precision, securing the scene and calling for the family's private medical team. They'd been prepared for something like this. Their boss taking bullets wasn't unprecedented, but the circumstances were unprecedented. The city sounds became distant, replaced by the rushing of blood in his ears. Marcello was dimly aware of careful hands moving him, of the girls being gently separated from his protective embrace. The mother's voice continued, its litany of thanks, now tinged with growing concern as she noticed the extent of his injuries. Even as consciousness abandoned him, Marcello's training kept certain details sharp in his mind. The weight of the girls he'd sheltered, the specific cadence of their mother's voice, the way her eyes had pierced through years of carefully maintained emotional distance. These details filed themselves away in his mind, important for reasons he couldn't yet understand. The last threads of awareness registered the arrival of his medical team, the efficient movements of his security detail, and the continuing sounds of the city night. Then everything faded to black, leaving only the lingering impression of green eyes and the satisfaction of having kept death away from two innocent lives, even if it meant inviting it closer to his own. 3 days of darkness dissolved into harsh sunlight. Marcello's eyes adjusted slowly, his trained instincts cataloging his surroundings before fully waking, the familiar weight of Egyptian cotton sheets, the steady beep of medical equipment, the faint scent of lavender mixing with antiseptic. His private medical suite hadn't changed. Same bulletproof windows stretching floor to ceiling, same muted cream walls hiding state-of-the-art security systems. But something was different. Someone was breathing softly nearby. Turning his head carefully, mindful of the pain that radiated from his shoulder, Marcello found a woman asleep in one of his leather guest chairs. Her dark hair fell across her face, one hand curled protectively around her phone even in sleep. The mother? The one with the eyes? Alessandro stood in the corner, his weathered face a mask of disapproval. The old consigliere had clearly lost the argument about allowing her to stay. Their silent exchange was interrupted by the woman stirring. "You're awake," she said softly, straightening in her chair. Those green eyes found his, wide with relief but shadowed with fear. The doctors weren't sure when. "How long have you been here?" Marcello's voice was rough from disuse. 3 days, on and off. Alessandro was kind enough to let me. She glanced nervously at the consigliere, who remained stone-faced. "I needed to thank you properly, for saving my girls." "Their names?" The question came out more demanding than he'd intended. "Lily and Luna." A genuine smile softened her features. "They keep asking about their guardian angel. That's what they're calling you." Marcello absorbed this, uncertain how to respond to being cast in such an unlikely role. "And you are?" "Nicole. Nicole Blackwood." She hesitated. "Recently divorced. We were starting over here when—" Her voice trailed off as she caught herself sharing too much. Before Marcello could press further, Dr. Romano bustled in, his bow tie slightly askew as always. "Ah, finally with us. Let's check those wounds, shall we?" He moved toward the bed with professional efficiency. "Mrs. Blackwood, if you wouldn't mind stepping out." Nicole stood quickly, almost too quickly. Her eyes darted between the guards visible through the open door. "Of course, I should check on the girls anyway." "They're safe?" Marcello found himself asking. "Yes, at our hotel. Your men have been—" She swallowed. "Very attentive." Marcello noted her careful word choice, the way she gripped her purse strap. She was terrified, not of him specifically, but of his world, of being trapped in it. "Alessandro," Marcello said once Nicole had left. "Report." His consigliere stepped forward, face grim. "We're investigating her background. Something isn't right. The divorce records are too clean, too recent, and her reaction to our security measures." He shook his head. "She knows more about our world than she's letting on." Dr. Romano interrupted their discussion to examine Marcello's wounds. 3 neat holes, professionally stitched. The doctor's update blended with Alessandro's security briefing, both men speaking the language of damage assessment and future risks. That evening, Nicole returned briefly. She carried something colorful, her steps more hesitant than before. "The girls insisted," she explained, holding out 2 handmade cards covered in glitter and wobbly crayon hearts. "They wanted their angel to feel better." Marcello accepted the cards, oddly moved by their childish sincerity. No one had given him anything so innocent in 20 years. He studied the drawings. stick figures wearing what appeared to be a cape, surrounded by stars and hearts. "Tell them." He cleared his throat. "Tell them thank you." Nicole nodded, but her eyes kept tracking the guards' movements, noting camera positions, analyzing exits. Not the behavior of someone simply intimidated by criminals. Alessandra was right. She knew too much. Later that night, after refusing more painkillers, Marcello reviewed security footage from the shooting. The initial chaos looked convincing, but small details caught his trained eye. The gunman's positioning was too precise, their timing too coordinated for a random gang clash. They'd created a kill box, but not for him. They'd been herding someone toward that alley. "Pull everything we have on Nicole Blackwood," he ordered. "Birth records, school transcripts, employment history. I want to know who she was before the divorce." Miles away, in a modest hotel room, Nicole paced near the window. Her twins slept peacefully in the queen-size bed, their matching faces serene. Her burner phone shook slightly in her hand as she dialed a memorized number. "He doesn't seem to know who I am yet," she whispered into the phone, watching the street below, where Marcello's men maintained their discreet surveillance. "But we can't stay here much longer. They're already digging." The medical equipment continued its steady rhythm in Marcello's suite, monitoring a body trained to heal quickly from violence. But his mind stayed sharp, processing the puzzle pieces Nicole represented. The way she carried herself, head high despite her fear. How she positioned herself in rooms, always aware of sightlines. The careful way she edited herself mid-sentence. Alessandro's network was already in motion, pulling threads that would unravel Nicole's hastily constructed cover story. But for now, Marcello found himself staring at the twins' cards, trying to remember the last time anyone had worried about his recovery beyond its tactical implications. 3 bullet wounds throbbed beneath their pristine bandages, each one a reminder of his instinctive choice to protect those children. He didn't regret it, even knowing something larger was at play. The pain was worth those small lives preserved, worth the momentary flash of genuine gratitude in Nicole's eyes before calculation had replaced it. Sunlight streamed through the mansion's bulletproof windows as Nicole guided her daughters through the imposing front doors. Lily and Luna's matching pink dresses brightened the austere marble foyer, their small voices echoing off the high ceiling. "It's like a castle," Luna whispered loudly, gripping her sister's hand. "Do angels live in castles?" Lily asked, her eyes wide as she took in the classical paintings and crystal chandelier. Nicole squeezed their hands. "Remember what we talked about? Best behavior for Mr. Ricci." "For our angel," they corrected in unison. Alessandro materialized from a side door, his perpetual frown deepening at the children's presence. "This way," he said curtly, leading them to Marcello's private study. They found him seated behind a massive desk, his injured shoulder evident in the careful way he held himself. Despite his imposing presence, the twins showed no fear. "Angel!" they exclaimed, breaking free from Nicole's grip to rush forward. Nicole tensed, but Marcello's security didn't move. Their boss raised his good hand, halting any intervention. The girls stopped short of the desk, suddenly shy. "Does your wing hurt?" Lily asked, pointing to his bandaged shoulder. Something flickered across Marcello's face. Discomfort, confusion, perhaps even amusement. "My wing?" "Mama said you got hurt protecting us like a guardian angel," Luna explained matter-of-factly. Nicole watched, fascinated, as the feared crime boss attempted to process this role thrust upon him by 5-year-old logic. His men seemed equally bewildered, exchanging glances as their boss awkwardly navigated the conversation. "I'm not really," and he began. "Can we see your halo?" Lily interrupted. A sound suspiciously like a hastily covered laugh came from one of the guards. Marcello shot him a quelling look that would normally inspire terror, but seemed to bounce right off the innocent enthusiasm radiating from the twins. "I don't have a halo," he said carefully. "Or wings. I'm just a man who wanted to keep you safe." "But you got hurt doing it," Luna insisted. "Like heroes do." Nicole stepped forward. "Girls, remember what we discussed about Mr. Ricci needing rest?" Before Marcello could respond, Alessandro appeared in the doorway. His face was tight with urgency. "Boss, a moment." Marcello excused himself, his warmth vanishing as he followed his consigliere into the hall. The twins, oblivious to the tension, began examining a chess set displayed on a side table. When Marcello returned minutes later, he was transformed. Gone was the awkward gentleness. His dark eyes fixed on Nicole with predatory focus. "Send the children out," he ordered softly. Nicole's heart stuttered. "Girls, why don't you ask the nice guard to show you the garden?" Once they were gone, Marcelo's voice cut through the silence. "Nicole Castellano!" The name hit her like a physical blow. She gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. "Or do you prefer your maiden name?" he continued. "Though Blackwood isn't quite right either, is it? My team found 3 variations in your past." "Please," she whispered. "The girls are Luca Castellano's daughters, my enemy's children, whom I took bullets protecting." His laugh held no humor. The universe has an interesting sense of irony. Tears spilled down Nicole's cheeks. "I didn't know who you were that night. I just saw my babies in danger. And then you saved them. And I thought maybe—" She drew a shaky breath. "I've been running for 6 months, ever since I found the ledgers." "What ledgers?" "Hidden accounts, shipping manifests, young girls being moved like cargo." Her voice broke. I confronted him. He laughed, said I should be grateful he let me live in luxury without asking questions. But I couldn't. Those poor girls. Understanding darkened Marcelo's expression. The trafficking operation. I couldn't let my daughters grow up with a monster. I took what evidence I could, emptied my private accounts, and ran. She met his gaze. "He'll kill us if he finds us. Not just for the money or the evidence, but because no one leaves Luca Castellano." Before Marcelo could respond, an explosion rocked the building. The blast shattered several windows despite their reinforcement. Without hesitation, Marcelo lunged forward, covering Nicole as glass rained down. His injured body sheltered her as security swarmed the room. "The girls!" Nicole cried. "Garden sector secure," a guard reported. "Children are safe with Team 2. Marcelo helped Nicole up, his movements controlled, despite obvious pain. Through the broken window, they watched a black SUV speed away, its tires squealing on the curved driveway. "They've found you," Marcelo stated grimly. "And now they know you're with me?" His hand stayed on her arm, steady despite the chaos around them. Guards coordinated through earpieces, securing the perimeter. In the distance, Nicole heard her daughters crying. "I'm sorry," she breathed. "I never meant to bring this to your door." Marcelo's expression was unreadable as he watched his men sweep the grounds. Blood had seeped through his shirt where the blast had torn his stitches. Yet his voice remained, calm, almost contemplative. 6 months, he mused. You kept 2 children hidden from one of the most powerful men in the criminal underworld for 6 months, while gathering evidence that could destroy his entire operation. He turned to her. "Perhaps the question isn't what danger you've brought to my door, but what opportunity?" Alessandro appeared with the twins, who immediately ran to their mother. Nicole clutched them close, breathing in their familiar scent as she waited for Marcelo's next words. Her daughters' lives hung in the balance of whatever calculation was happening behind those dark eyes. Security teams moved with practiced efficiency around them, sweeping up glass and reinforcing entry points. The morning sun highlighted the settling dust, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere in the destroyed study. And through it all, Marcelo watched her, weighing options only he could see. The evening shadows lengthened across the marble floors of Marcelo's estate as Nicole paced the guest suite. Her footsteps were muffled by plush carpeting that probably cost more than her year's salary as a nurse. The twins slept peacefully in the adjoining bedroom, their small forms curled together like kittens on the king-sized bed. The room itself was a study in old-world luxury, hand-painted silk wallpaper, antique furnishings that whispered of generations of wealth, and windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. But Nicole noticed the subtle signs of their new reality: reinforced glass, discreet security cameras, and guards positioned at every approach. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Marcelo entered without waiting for a response, his presence filling the spacious room. He'd changed from his blood-stained shirt into a fresh black button-down, though he moved stiffly from his injuries. "The attack was a message," he said without preamble. "Castellano wants you to know he's found you." Nicole's hands trembled. "Then we need to leave. Tonight. I won't be a pawn in your war with my ex-husband." "You have 2 choices." Marcelo's voice was soft but implacable. "Stay under my protection, or risk your daughters becoming orphans before sunrise." "That's not a choice," Nicole hissed, mindful of the sleeping girls. "That's an ultimatum." "That's reality. Castellano has people everywhere. Police, hotels, hospitals. My fortress is the only place he can't reach you." The truth of his words hit her like physical pain. They'd traded one cage for another, even if this one came with silk sheets and armed guards. "So, we're just supposed to trust you." Her laugh held no humor. The great Marcello Ricci, who just happens to be my ex-husband's biggest rival. How convenient for you, having his wife and heirs under your roof." Marcello's eyes narrowed. "You think I orchestrated getting shot 3 times? I think you're not above using us to hurt him." Before Marcello could respond, a piercing scream cut through their tension. Luna thrashed in the bed, tears streaming down her face as she cried about bad men with guns. Nicole moved to comfort her daughter, but Marcello was closer. To her surprise, he sat carefully on the bed's edge, his large frame somehow less intimidating as he spoke to the frightened child. "Hey, little one," he said, voice gentler than Nicole had thought possible. "Was it the bad dream again?" Luna nodded, hiccuping. "They were shooting at Lily." "That must have been scary." He awkwardly patted her hand. "But you know what? Those men can't get past my soldiers. And do you know why?" "Why?" Luna whispered. "Because guardian angels are very good at protecting people they care about." A small smile broke through Luna's tears. "Like you protected us?" "Exactly like that." He tucked the blanket around her. "Want to know a secret? Angels never sleep. We stand guard all night long." Luna's eyes were already getting heavy. "Promise?" "I promise." He waited until her breathing evened out before standing. Nicole watched him with new eyes. That was unexpected. I had nightmares too at their age. He didn't elaborate. Taking a deep breath, Nicole made her decision. "We'll stay, but I have conditions." "Name them." "We're not bait, not bargaining chips. You don't use my daughters to draw him out or negotiate deals." Marcello considered this. "Agreed, with one condition of my own. You tell me everything you know about Castellano's operations. Every detail about the trafficking, every name you remember, every location you overheard." Nicole nodded slowly. "I can do that." Marcello turned to leave, but moved too quickly. He couldn't quite suppress his wince as fresh blood seeped through his shirt where the earlier explosion had torn his stitches. "Wait," Nicole called softly. "Let me help with that. I was a nurse, remember?" He hesitated in the doorway, clearly unused to accepting help. Nicole pressed her advantage. "You're no good to anyone if those wounds get infected. The first aid kit is in your study." After a long moment, he nodded. Nicole glanced at her sleeping daughters, then followed him into the hallway. Guards shadowed their movement, a constant reminder of their precarious situation. The study still showed signs of the morning's attack. Boards covered the broken windows, and there was a faint smell of smoke in the air. Nicole found the medical supplies exactly where she'd left them after treating him the first time. "Shirt off," she ordered, falling into professional mode to hide her nervousness. Marcello complied without comment, revealing the extent of damage from both the original bullets and the explosion's impact. Nicole worked in silence, cleaning and rebandaging the wounds with practiced efficiency. "You're good at this," he observed. "Lots of practice in the ER." She secured the last bandage, though usually my patients weren't conscious enough to compliment my technique. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Usually your patients weren't harboring your fugitive family, either." The attempt at humor surprised her. She finished packing away the supplies, hyper-aware of his presence and the strange intimacy of the moment. Here they were, reluctant allies bound by circumstance and survival, neither fully trusting the other, but both committed to protecting 2 innocent lives. "Why did you really save them that night?" she asked suddenly. "You didn't know who they were. You could have died." Marcello was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice held an edge of something she couldn't quite identify. "Because someone once told me that how we protect the innocent defines who we are." He stood carefully, testing the fresh bandages. "Get some rest, Nicole. Tomorrow we start planning how to keep your daughters safe and how to make Castellano pay for every life he's destroyed." The morning sun streamed through reinforced windows as Nicole guided her daughters into Marcello's formal dining room. She stopped short at the transformation. 2 pink booster seats flanked Marcello's usual place at the head of the massive mahogany table. Child-sized plates decorated with cartoon characters replaced the usual stark white china. "Look, Mommy, princess plates!" Lily squealed, scrambling into her seat while Luna followed. Nicole caught the chef's bemused expression as he carried in plates of Mickey Mouse-shaped pancakes and carefully cut fruit. The hardened kitchen staff, who usually prepared gourmet Italian cuisine, now stood awkwardly holding sippy cups filled with orange juice. Marcello entered, already impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. He paused almost imperceptibly at the sight of children in his carefully ordered domain before taking his seat. "Mr. Angel, do you like pancakes?" Luna asked, syrup already smeared across her chin. "I usually have espresso for breakfast," Marcello admitted. "That's boring," Lily declared. "Try the Mickey ears." Nicole hid her smile as the feared Mafia boss carefully cut into a cartoon-shaped pancake. Around them, his security detail tried to maintain their intimidating presence while stepping carefully around scattered Cheerios. "Can we see the fishies again?" Luna asked, referencing the koi pond they'd spotted in the courtyard. After breakfast, Nicole started, but Lily had already knocked over her juice in excitement. 3 guards lunged forward with napkins before the spillage could reach Marcello's suit. Nicole noticed how they'd modified their usual alertness to accommodate children. Weapons concealed more carefully, voices gentler, eyes scanning for hazards at toddler height. A guard approached with a tablet, his expression grim. Marcello's face hardened as he read the message. He hesitated, glancing at the twins before showing Nicole the screen. It was a public statement from Castellano, dripping with mockery. "How touching to see the virgin saint of the Ricci family playing house with my leftovers. Tell me, Marcello, does protecting what's mine make you feel like a real man finally?" Nicole's stomach churned at Castellano's possessive words, but something else caught her attention. "Virgin saint?" Marcello dismissed the guards with a gesture, ensuring the twins were absorbed in their breakfast before speaking quietly. "I was 12 when my family was massacred. The church took me in, an orphanage run by strict Dominican priests." His jaw tightened. "I made certain vows while there, personal ones, about purity and conduct. When I rebuilt the Ricci Empire, I maintained those vows." Nicole studied him with new understanding. The controlled demeanor, the rigid moral code despite his criminal empire, it all made more sense. Before she could respond, Alessandro burst in, face ashen. "Boss Castellano just posted a bounty, 5 million for information on their location." He glanced nervously at Nicole. "He claims he already has someone inside our organization feeding him intelligence." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Marcello's expression turned lethal as he began rapid-fire orders in Italian to his security team. Nicole watched his perfectly ordered world fracture because of her presence. Guards eyeing each other with suspicion, protocols being rewritten, loyalty tests implemented. "Mommy, can we feed the fish now?" Lily's innocent question contrasted sharply with the tension surrounding them. "Soon, baby. Finish your breakfast first." Nicole met Marcello's gaze across the table, seeing the weight of responsibility in his eyes. That evening, after a day of heightened security and whispered conversations, Marcello gathered his inner circle in his study. Nicole stood uncertainly at the edge of the group, feeling the stares of his most trusted captains. Marcello's voice cut through the murmuring. "The Blackwood family is now under Ricci protection. This isn't about guarding guests. This is about defending our family's honor." His dark eyes swept the room. "Anyone who betrays that protection betrays me personally. Understood?" The gathered men nodded solemnly, though Nicole caught flickers of surprise at his declaration. She remembered how they'd reacted to his gentleness with Luna last night. This was clearly new territory for everyone. Later, as she tucked her daughters into bed in their heavily guarded suite, Lily asked drowsily, "Mommy, are we staying with the angel forever?" Nicole smoothed her daughter's hair, wondering the same thing herself. What did Marcello's declaration really mean? Protection was one thing, but he'd specifically used the word family. In his world, she knew that carried significant weight. Luna was already asleep, clutching the stuffed kitten one of Marcello's guards had somehow procured for her. The tough enforcer had turned red when presenting it, mumbling something about his own daughter having one just like it. Around them, the fortress hummed with activity. Guards patrolling, security systems monitoring, an entire criminal empire reorganizing itself to protect 2 small girls and their mother. Nicole could hear Marcello's voice from his study down the hall, still coordinating responses to Castellano's threats. She wondered what tomorrow would bring in this strange new world where hardened criminals served Mickey Mouse pancakes and mafia bosses quoted scripture. Where protection meant more than physical safety and declarations of family carried implications she wasn't sure she was ready to face. The morning sun streamed through reinforced windows, casting golden light across the medical room. Nicole guided Marcello's arm through another careful rotation, her trained hands steady despite the intimacy of their position. "Good. Now hold it there," she instructed, noting how his muscles tensed beneath her fingers. A week of these sessions had made her familiar with his numerous scars. some old, some fresh, each telling its own story of survival. "Your form is improving," she said professionally, though she couldn't ignore the warmth radiating from his skin. "The student follows his teacher," Marcelo replied, his usual formality softened by a hint of humor. Nicole adjusted his shoulder position. "These exercises will help prevent long-term stiffness, though I suspect you've dealt with worse injuries." "Many, but never while protecting children before." His dark eyes met hers. "How did you manage it? Being trapped with him while protecting them?" Nicole's hands stilled momentarily. "At first, I didn't realize I needed to protect them. Luca was charming, generous. By the time I saw behind the mask, I was already isolated from everyone. No family left, no close friends." She resumed the exercise. "I stayed because leaving seemed impossible, until I found those files." "The trafficking operation?" She nodded. "Detailed records, routes, contacts. I realized then that my daughters would never be safe with him. That night, I started planning our escape." "Brave," Marcelo said quietly. "Desperate," she corrected. "What about you, reclaiming your family's empire at 18? "The church raised me well, but couldn't erase who I was born to be." His jaw tightened. "The Ricci name needed restoration. I did what was necessary." Tiny footsteps interrupted them as Lily wandered in, clutching her stuffed unicorn. "Mommy, Luna's still sleeping." Her eyes widened at Marcelo's exposed scars. "Did bad guys do that?" Nicole tensed, but Marcelo answered calmly. "Some of them. In my world, Lily, sometimes we get hurt protecting what matters." "Like when you saved us?" "Yes, Piccola. Exactly like that." Lily traced a faded scar on his forearm with innocent curiosity. "Did it hurt?" "At the time, but pain reminds us we're alive to fight another day." Nicole marveled at his honest yet gentle explanation. No condescension, no false assurances, just truth filtered through wisdom. "I noticed more cameras being installed," Nicole said, helping Marcelo with another stretch. "And the new guards?" "Necessary precautions. We've identified several weak points in our security. The mole remains hidden, but they've accessed sensitive areas." His expression darkened. "Castellano's influence runs deeper than expected." "He always cultivated inside sources," Nicole offered. "Used financial records to identify vulnerable employees, gambling debts, medical bills, family emergencies." Alessandro entered with a tablet. "She's right, boss. Cross-referencing personnel files with recent financial activity shows several concerning patterns." "Check anyone with sudden debt clearance or unusual deposits," Nicole suggested. Luca preferred to create obligation before making direct contact. Alessandro nodded appreciatively. "Smart. We'll add that to our screening protocols." Later that afternoon, Marcelo led them through the secure areas of the compound. The twins marveled at the Japanese gardens, complete with koi pond and cherry trees. Nicole noticed how the guards maintained discreet distances, allowing the illusion of privacy while keeping sightlines clear. "And this," Marcelo said, opening carved wooden doors, "is my private gallery." Nicole gasped softly. Masterpieces lined the walls, Renaissance paintings, modern sculptures, impressionist landscapes. The twins wandered carefully between pedestals, instinctively understanding the space's importance. "Beautiful things remind us why we fight," Marcelo explained. "Beauty and violence have always been intertwined." Hours later, after the twins were asleep, Nicole found Marcelo alone in the gallery. He stood before a striking painting of Saint Sebastian, arrows piercing the martyr's body while his face reflected transcendent peace. "An unusual choice for a crime lord's collection," she observed. "Sebastian was a warrior before he was a saint," Marcelo replied. "He understood that sometimes violence serves a higher purpose." He turned to face her. "The church taught me to seek beauty in darkness, to find meaning in suffering. These paintings remind me that even in our world, grace exists." Nicole studied the martyred saint's expression. "Beauty amid violence. Is that what you see?" "I see transformation through trial, pain creating purpose." His eyes met hers, like a mother finding strength to escape a monster, or a child's innocent trust healing old wounds. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Nicole felt the familiar flutter of attraction she'd been fighting since their first meeting. Here was a man who commanded an empire through force, yet bent down to comfort her daughter's nightmares, who collected priceless art and used it to contemplate redemption. A sharp knock interrupted them. "Boss!" a guard called urgently. We have movement on Castellano's operation. Multiple vehicles leaving his compound heading south. The spell broke as Marcelo's expression shifted to calculated focus. How many? 3 SUVs, heavily armed. Intelligence suggests they're moving something valuable. Or someone, Marcelo said grimly. Double the perimeter guards. No one enters or leaves without direct authorization. He turned to Nicole. We should get you and the girls to the secure wing. As they moved through the shadowed gallery, Nicole caught a final glimpse of St. Sebastian's serene face. Beauty amid violence indeed, she thought, but which would ultimately prevail in their world of arrows and angels. Laughter echoed through the mansion's grand ballroom, an unusual sound in the normally austere space. Pink and purple streamers cascaded from crystal chandeliers, while uniformed guards maintained their posts at every entrance, creating a surreal contrast between fairy tale celebration and tactical vigilance. Make a wish, Nicole encouraged, as Lily and Luna bent over their shared birthday cake, decorated with dancing princesses and sparkling candles. The twins squeezed their eyes shut, cheeks puffed out with determination, before blowing with all their might. Applause erupted from the gathered staff, hardened enforcers and domestic workers alike joining in the celebration. Marcelo stood slightly apart, his usual commanding presence softened by a paper crown the girls had insisted he wear. Nicole couldn't help smiling at the sight of Rome's most feared crime boss participating in Pin the Tail on the Unicorn with surprising patience. Boss, Alessandro approached discreetly, tablet in hand. Updates on the Castellano situation. Marcelo's expression hardened instantly, though he kept his voice low to avoid disturbing the children's joy. Nicole drifted closer, catching fragments about business partners being pressured to choose sides. Mr. Angel, Luna called out, using the nickname that made Marcelo's guards hide smirks. You promised to help us build the Princess Castle. Nicole watched in fascination as Marcelo's severe expression melted. He handed the tablet back to Alessandro and joined the girls on the floor, his expensive suit collecting glitter as he helped construct a cardboard palace. Later, while the twins were distracted by face painting, Nicole cornered Marcelo near the dessert table. I heard about Castellano. This is escalating because of us, isn't it? This was inevitable, Marcelo replied, though tension lined his face. Castellano's empire was always going to fall. What do you mean? Marcelo led her to a quiet corner, his voice dropping. For the past 5 years, I've been systematically dismantling his trafficking network. Port by port, route by route, the children he trades, the women he enslaves. I've been tracking every operation. Nicole's hand flew to her mouth. That's why he's so desperate to silence me. My evidence combined with what you know could destroy him completely. Marcelo's eyes burned with controlled fury. Your testimony about his legitimate businesses being fronts for trafficking, that's the final piece we need. Why didn't you tell me this before? The less you knew, the safer you were. His gaze drifted to the twins, now sporting butterfly designs on their cheeks. Though that plan failed the moment I saw them in that alley. The party continued around them, cake being served, presents opened, children's music playing. The normalcy felt almost dreamlike against their dark conversation. Later that night, after the decorations were cleared and security rotations changed, Nicole joined Marcelo in his office. Files spread across his desk detailed shipping manifests and property deeds. The paper trail of Castellano's crimes. These account numbers, Nicole pointed, leaning close to Marcelo's shoulder. They matched transfers I saw him make to shell companies in Singapore. Marcelo made notes in precise handwriting. The same companies that own these warehouses near the port, he indicated surveillance photos. Yes, he called them distribution centers, but never let me visit. The memory made her shudder. Now I know why. They worked late into the night, Nicole's insider knowledge filling crucial gaps in Marcelo's investigation. She couldn't help noticing how different he was in this setting, focused but not frightening, powerful but not threatening. After tucking the exhausted birthday girls into bed, Nicole found Marcelo in his study. He sat at his desk, turning something small between his fingers. A bullet, she realized. One of 3 surgically removed from his body after the shooting. The doctor said you were lucky, she said softly. A few inches different. Not luck, choice. He set the bullet down carefully. I saw their faces and chose to act. Why? Nicole perched on the edge of his desk. You didn't know us. We could have been anyone. Marcelo was quiet for a long moment. When I was 12, I watched my family die because no one stepped in. No one wanted to risk themselves for strangers. His voice carried old pain. I promised myself I'd never be that person. the one who turns away when they have the power to help. The confession hung between them, heavy with shared understanding. Nicole saw past the feared crime boss to the orphaned boy who'd built an empire from ashes and pain. "The girls think you're their guardian angel," she said softly. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Angels don't usually require quite so much physical therapy." "No," Nicole agreed, remembering their morning sessions. "Angels probably don't bleed either." Their eyes met in the lamplit study, the day's celebration fading into night's revelations. For a moment, Nicole glimpsed the man beneath the armor, someone who built princess castles and dismantled trafficking rings with equal dedication, who took bullets for strangers and kept paper crowns in his desk drawer. Outside, guards patrolled the perimeter while the twins slept peacefully upstairs, their birthday wishes still hanging in the air like invisible protection. Inside the study, two people from very different worlds found common ground in their determination to protect innocence. In a dangerous world, the alarms shattered Dawn's silence. Nicole bolted upright, heart pounding as shouts echoed through the mansion. Training kicked in. She sprinted to the twins' room, scooping up their sleep-warm bodies. "Remember our special hide-and-seek game," she whispered, keeping her voice steady. The girls nodded, still groggy but sensing urgency. Following memorized protocols, Nicole hurried them through hidden corridors to the reinforced panic room. The steel door whispered shut behind them, sealing them in climate-controlled safety. Lily clutched her stuffed unicorn while Luna pressed against Nicole's side. 12 minutes later, the door's complex locks disengaged. Marcello strode in, his pristine suit stained with crimson splatters. Nicole's breath caught until she noticed his movements were too fluid for injury. "Stay here," he ordered, voice clipped. "We caught him, but I need to handle this personally." The twins reached for him, but he stepped back, keeping his bloodied hands away from their innocent grasp. His eyes met Nicole's. Cold, focused, nothing like the man who'd read bedtime stories last night. Hours crawled by. The girls napped on the room's plush sofa while Nicole paced. Finally, Marcello sent word they could leave. "The children stay here," he instructed through the intercom. "Nicole, Alessandro will escort you to your room." But Alessandro was delayed by a security call. Nicole, restless after hours confined, decided to walk the familiar path alone. She'd almost reached the main stairs when muffled sounds drew her attention to a partially open door. She should have walked past, should have hurried upstairs. Instead, she found herself frozen, watching through the gap. Marcello stood in what had been an elegant study, now transformed into something darker. A man slumped in a chair, face bloodied but defiant. Marcello's movements were precise, almost elegant, as he extracted information with methodical brutality. "Who else knows about the children?" Marcello's voice carried no emotion. The man spat blood. "Go to hell!" "You first!" Marcello's hand moved and the man screamed. "The twins! What were your orders?" Take one, just one. Show you can't protect them." Nicole pressed her hand to her mouth, bile rising. "Castellano's idea." Another scream answered him. "Who else is involved?" When the man had nothing left to tell, Marcello drew his gun. The shot was quiet, efficient, final. Nicole stumbled back, vision blurring. This calculated executioner couldn't be the same man who'd spent hours building block towers with her daughters. That evening, after tucking the twins into bed with extra kisses, Nicole found Marcello in his office. He'd showered, changed, erased all evidence of morning violence. But she couldn't unsee it. "You didn't have to kill him," she said from the doorway. Marcello didn't look up from his desk. "Yes, I did." "There are other ways. Laws, justice." "Laws." Now he met her gaze. "Like the laws that let Castellano operate for years, the justice system he buys off? So you just murder people instead? To protect what's mine, without hesitation?" Nicole stepped closer, anger flaring. "We're not yours. We're not things to possess." "No," he agreed, rising. "Your family I choose to protect by whatever means necessary. Like Castellano protected me." The words struck like physical blows. Another powerful man deciding what's best, dealing death as he pleases. Marcello moved with liquid grace until they stood toe-to-toe. "I am nothing like him." "Aren't you? I saw you today, the real you, a monster wearing a gentleman's mask." "A monster who takes bullets for children?" His voice dropped dangerously. "Who hunts traffickers while others look away?" "A monster who executes helpless men." "Helpless?" Marcello laughed without humor. That helpless man came to steal your child, to hurt your daughter, to hurt me. Still think mercy was the answer? They were breathing the same air now, fury crackling between them. Nicole saw the muscle ticking in his jaw, the barely contained violence in his rigid posture. I won't apologize for protecting you, he growled, for eliminating threats to this family. We're not your family, you're just... The words died as his hand came up to cradle her face, the same hand that had dealt death hours before now, touching her with exquisite gentleness. Time suspended. His eyes dropped to her lips, darkness replacing anger. Nicole swayed forward, pulled by something stronger than fear or fury. Marcelo jerked back as if burned. Without another word, he strode from the room, leaving Nicole alone with her thundering heart. Later, sleepless and confused, she stood at her window. The garden below was bathed in moonlight, and there he was, a solitary figure among the roses. His usual rigid control softened by shadows and solitude. How could she reconcile these versions of him? The killer, the protector, the man who looked at her with such hunger before running away. As if sensing her thoughts, Marcelo looked up, their eyes locked across the distance. Nicole in her ivory nightgown, backlit by warm lamplight. Marcelo dark and dangerous in the garden below. Neither looked away, acknowledging this pull between them that defied logic or safety. Finally, Marcelo turned, disappearing into the darkness like a shadow himself. Nicole pressed her hand to the cool glass, mind spinning with the day's revelations. The line between safety and danger, protection and possession, had never felt so blurred. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Nicole wandered the mansion's darkened halls, sleep once again eluding her. Moonlight filtered through rain-streaked windows, casting shifting shadows across marble floors. Her bare feet carried her toward warm light, spilling from beneath double doors she hadn't noticed before. She hesitated before pushing one door open, finding Marcelo in what could only be his private library. Floor to ceiling, shelves lined with leather-bound volumes surrounded a masculine space of dark wood and deep leather chairs. He stood at a small bar cart, crystal decanter in hand. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning. "The storm!" It wasn't entirely a lie. The weather merely amplified her usual demons. He poured a second glass of amber liquid, offering it to her. "Whiskey helps. Sometimes." Nicole accepted the glass, sinking into a chair across from where he settled. Rain tapped against tall windows, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. The whiskey burned pleasantly, warming her from within. "Why are you really awake?" she asked, studying his profile in the lamplight. Marcelo swirled his drink, watching the liquid catch the light. "Same reason as most nights. Ghosts." "Tell me about them." The whiskey made her bold. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he spoke, his voice carried weight she hadn't heard before. "I was 12 when they came for my family. Sunday dinner. Everyone was there. Parents, sisters, cousins." His knuckles whitened around his glass. "I survived because I was hiding in the wine cellar, sneaking extra dessert. Heard everything. Couldn't do anything." Nicole's heart ached. "The orphanage took you in after." "St. Michael's. The priest there." He gave a hollow laugh. "They tried to save my soul while I planned vengeance, made bargains with God. I'd stay pure, follow certain rules, if he'd give me strength to rebuild what was lost." "Your vow of physical purity," Nicole said softly, remembering Castellano's mocking words. Marcelo nodded. "Until I found someone worthy of breaking it for. Someone who'd understand both sides of me, the saint and the sinner." The air between them thickened. Nicole took another sip of whiskey before sharing her own darkness. "I was 22 when I met Luca, young nurse, dazzled by his charm and wealth. He was so good at first, attentive, generous." Her laugh held no humor. "By the time I saw the cage, it was too late." "How did you discover the trafficking?" "Wrong file on his laptop. Manifest listing girls like cargo. Some barely 13. Her hand shook, remembering. "I thought about my daughters growing up in that world. What they might become. I couldn't." "You ran." There was approval in his tone. "Took months to plan. Saved cash from grocery money, made copies of documents, memorized guard rotations." She met his gaze. "I'd rather die than let him raise my girls." Understanding passed between them, the lengths they'd go to protect what mattered. "I've been hunting his trafficking network for years," Marcelo admitted. "Dismantling it piece by piece. That's why he fears you with me, Your evidence, combined with what I already know, could destroy him. Is that why you took those bullets? To get to Castellano? No. His answer came quickly. I saw innocent children in danger. Everything else came after. Rain drummed harder against the windows as silence settled. Nicole studied him, this complicated man who ordered executions yet saved little girls, who built his empire on violence yet fought against exploitation. His phone buzzed, breaking the moment. The conversation that followed was terse, focused. When he hung up, satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. That was Paolo, raid successful on one of Castellano's holdings, 20 women freed. He was already moving, purpose in every step. They'll need medical care, safe houses, new identities. Nicole followed him to his office, watching him coordinate with practiced efficiency. Doctors mobilized, security arranged, resources flowing. His criminal power served a hidden justice she'd never expected. Throughout the long day that followed, something had shifted between them. She felt it in his lingering glances when he thought she wasn't looking, in the brief touch of his hand steadying her elbow, in the way he included her in discussions about the rescued women's care. That evening, Nicole found a secure phone on her nightstand. A single message waited. You asked why I took those bullets. Maybe it was to finally meet someone who understands both darkness and light. She traced the words, feeling the weight of choice before her. This man was dangerous, to her heart, to her carefully built walls, to everything she thought she knew about good and evil. The phone felt heavy in her hand as she contemplated her response. They were moving toward something neither had planned, something that could save or destroy them both. Outside her window, the storm finally broke. Moonlight pierced the clouds, casting silver patterns across her bed. Somewhere in this fortress of a home, Marcelo waited for her answer. Like the moon emerging from darkness, some truths couldn't be denied once revealed. The morning dawned bright as Nicole helped the twins into their matching blue dresses. Their excitement filled the normally austere hallway of the compound, their first outing since arriving weeks ago. Marcelo had arranged everything with military precision, yet his usual stern expression softened, watching the girls skip toward the waiting convoy. Remember the rules? Nicole knelt to their level, straightening Luna's collar. Stay close to the angels, Lily recited, using their nickname for Marcelo's security team. And hold hands, Luna added proudly. Marcelo approached, his dark suit impeccable as always. The museum secured, my team swept it twice. He helped Nicole into the armored SUV, his hand lingering on her lower back. The convoy moved through morning traffic, 4 identical vehicles making it impossible to identify which carried the family. Nicole watched the city pass, remembering the last time they'd been outside. Gunfire, blood on pavement, Marcelo's body shielding her children. The private museum rose before them, classical columns gleaming in sunlight. Pretty! The twins gasped in unison. Security formed a perimeter as they entered the empty building. I arranged a special tour, Marcelo explained. Though Nicole understood the truth, his influence had cleared the entire museum for their safety. Inside, the twins' wonder transformed the space. They pulled Marcelo from exhibit to exhibit, peppering him with questions. Nicole watched him change, his usual rigid control softening as he knelt to explain paintings and sculptures to her daughters. Look, Mama, Lily pointed to a Renaissance angel. Like Mr. Marcelo when he saved us. Nicole caught his expression. Surprise, tenderness, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name. He'd been their guardian angel that night, and somehow never stopped. The peaceful moment shattered when Paolo approached rapidly, speaking low in Marcelo's ear. His posture shifted instantly, the protector replacing the gentle guide. Movement in the building across the street, he murmured to Nicole. We're leaving, now. She gathered the twins, but the first shots cracked before they reached the exit. Glass shattered somewhere behind them as Marcelo's body covered them, hustling them toward the doors. The girls screamed as more gunfire erupted. Nicole's world narrowed to flashbacks. The original shooting, blood pooling beneath Marcelo's body, her daughter's terrified faces. Her chest constricted as security surrounded them, rushing toward waiting vehicles. Eyes on me, Marcelo commanded, one hand steady on her back while the other sheltered the twins. Almost there. They made it to the SUV as return fire from Marcelo's team provided cover. The convoy peeled away, taking different routes back to the compound. Nicole held her crying daughters, fighting her own panic as memories overwhelmed her. Back inside the fortress walls, Marcelo's housekeeper swept in to comfort the twins with hot chocolate and Disney movies. Nicole barely made it to her room before the delayed panic attack hit full force. Her lungs seized, vision tunneling as the morning's terror combined with years of suppressed trauma. Strong hands guided her to sit, a familiar voice anchoring her. "Breathe with me, Nicole. Slow and steady." Marcello knelt before her, usually perfect suit disheveled, letting her grip his hands as she fought for control. Minutes passed as her breathing steadied, his presence surprisingly comforting. "I can't lose them," she whispered. "I can't lose this." "You won't." His voice carried raw emotion she'd never heard before. "I won't let anyone take them. Take you." Their eyes met, defenses stripped away by shared fear and something more powerful growing between them. His thumb brushed her cheek, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Hours later, after ensuring the twins were peacefully asleep with extra security posted, Nicole stood outside Marcello's bedroom. Her heart pounded for different reasons now as she knocked softly. He opened the door, jacket and tie gone, shirt partially unbuttoned. His eyes darkened seeing her there, understanding dawning as she stepped. "Closer." "Nicole." His voice held warning and want. "I know about your vow," she said softly. "Let me help you break it." She reached for him first, fingers tracing his jaw before drawing him down to her. The kiss started gentle, his first, she realized with wonder, before deepening into something hungry and desperate. His hands shook slightly as she led him toward the bed, uncertainty warring with desire. "I've never—" "Trust me," she whispered, slowly unbuttoning his shirt. "Like I trust you." They took their time, Nicole guiding him through each new sensation. His careful control melted beneath her touch as she showed him pleasure he'd denied himself for so long. When they finally joined, his reverent whispers of her name became prayers of their own. Later, wrapped in tangled sheets in each other, Marcello traced patterns on her skin. "I never thought I'd want more than vengeance and power," he admitted quietly. "Never thought I'd find someone worth breaking every vow for." Nicole kissed his chest over his heart. "What do you want now?" "A future. With you. With them." His arms tightened around her. "I want to build something that keeps you safe, lets the girls grow up without fear." Dawn painted the room in soft light as they began planning their next moves against Castellano. Partners now in strategy and heart, they mapped out steps to freedom neither had dared imagine before. The next morning's light barely touched the horizon when Nicole slipped from Marcello's bed. Her bare feet moved silently through the mansion's corridors, her heart still racing from their night together. Opening her bedroom door, she froze at the sight of a black velvet box centered on her pillow. Inside, nestled in silk, lay an antique diamond pendant, delicate yet striking, like starlight captured in silver. A handwritten note read simply, "For the light you've brought into my darkness." Nicole's fingers trembled as she fastened it around her neck, the weight of it both precious and daunting. She barely had time to compose herself before twin voices echoed down the hall, her daughters awake and ready for breakfast. In the dining room, Marcello sat reviewing reports, every bit the controlled crime boss. Only his slight pause when she entered, his gaze lingering on the pendant, betrayed their altered dynamic. The twins chattered about their museum adventure, blissfully unaware of both yesterday's danger and last night's intimacies. "Mr. Marcello, will you read with us later?" Luna asked, syrup dripping from her fork. "If time permits," he answered, his professional tone belied by the softness in his eyes. Throughout the morning, they maintained careful distance, though Nicole felt electricity in every accidental brush of hands, every shared glance. During security briefings, she sat beside him as usual, but now hyper-aware of his presence, remembering how those powerful hands had touched her so tenderly hours before. "The museum attack shows coordination we hadn't anticipated," Paolo reported, pulling up surveillance footage. "They knew exactly when to position their people." Nicole leaned forward, studying the timing. "Wait, replay that section." She pointed to a sequence showing the attackers' arrival. "They were in place before we even left the compound. How did they know our route?" Marcello's expression darkened. "The mole must be higher placed than we thought. Only my inner circle knew the complete plan." They spent hours reviewing personnel files, Nicole offering insights about behavioral patterns from her nursing background. The work felt different now, more intimate, more urgent. This wasn't just strategy, it was protecting their future. Their investigation paused when Alessandro arrived with updates about the charity gala. "The guest list is confirmed. Security protocols need final approval." Work with Nicole on the medical emergency preparations, Marcelo directed. Her expertise will be valuable. Nicole followed Alessandro to the security office, diving into evacuation plans and first aid stations. While reviewing blueprints, she noticed a safe partially hidden behind a painting. Something about its placement nagged at her. Later, when the office cleared for lunch, curiosity overcame her. The safe's combination, the twins' birthday, clicked open on her first try. Her heart stopped at what she found inside. Surveillance photos of her and the girls, dating back months before the shooting. Detailed reports on her daily routines. Financial records of her divorce from Castellano. Everything about her life had been monitored, analyzed, documented. The room spun as implications crashed over her. The shooting that brought them together. Had it been orchestrated? Was last night's vulnerability just another calculated move in some elaborate game? She replaced everything exactly as she'd found it, forcing down her rising panic. Years with Castellano had taught her to hide her feelings. She'd need that skill now. As evening approached, she helped the twins dress for the gala, fighting nausea as she zipped up her own midnight blue gown. The pendant felt like ice against her skin, its beauty now a mockery. Guests began arriving, politicians, business leaders, old money families, all paying tribute to the Ricci Empire's legitimate face. Nicole played her role perfectly, smiling and gracious as she supervised the children's brief appearance before their nanny took them upstairs. Marcelo commanded the room effortlessly, every inch the respected businessman. Watching him charm donors, she remembered how he'd charmed her. Had any of it been real? Across the ballroom, he caught her eye and raised his champagne glass in subtle acknowledgement. She returned the gesture smoothly, years of survival instincts kicking in. Inside, her mind raced through escape scenarios, accounts she'd hidden, contacts who could help, routes Castellano wouldn't expect. She danced with business associates, laughed at their wives' jokes, all while cataloging resources and vulnerabilities. The pendant burned against her throat like a brand of ownership, a reminder of how easily she'd been manipulated. When Marcelo's hand found the small of her back during a quiet moment, she forced herself not to flinch. "You look stunning tonight," he murmured, his voice carrying the intimate warmth of new lovers. "Thank you for the pendant," she replied, her smile never wavering. "It's exquisite." His fingers traced the diamond briefly. "It suits you perfectly, like you were meant to wear it." Just as she'd been meant to fall into his protection. Into his bed? The questions burned unasked as she maintained her serene facade, playing the grateful woman he'd saved while her heart turned to ice beneath borrowed diamonds. The gala's opulence felt suffocating now. Nicole moved through clusters of wealthy guests, their laughter and crystal clinking a surreal backdrop to her inner turmoil. Her midnight blue gown whispered across marble floors as she maintained her composure, years of practice, hiding her true feelings, serving her well. Every time Marcelo's gaze found her across the room, the weight of those surveillance documents pressed heavier on her chest. He stood with a group of politicians, effortlessly commanding attention while his hidden security team monitored every corner. The man who'd made love to her just hours ago had apparently been orchestrating her life for months. "You seem distracted tonight." Paolo appeared at her elbow, offering a fresh champagne. His familiar presence, usually comforting, now highlighted how little she truly knew about anyone here. "The twins," she said, seizing the excuse. "I should check on them again. They're probably still watching movies with Maria. I'll help you look in on them. You shouldn't wander the compound alone during events like this." As they climbed the stairs, Nicole noticed how Paolo positioned himself between her and the security camera's sightlines. Had he always done that, or was she just paranoid now? Meanwhile, Marcelo's phone buzzed with an anonymous message. She found the surveillance files. Partial truths have her planning escape. His face remained impassive as he scanned the crowded ballroom, but Nicole and Paolo were nowhere in sight. Upstairs, Paolo guided Nicole past the twins' regular room toward the service wing. "Security's lighter back here during events," he explained. "Maria sometimes lets them watch TV in the staff lounge." But when they entered the dim hallway, Paolo's demeanor shifted. "There's a service tunnel that leads to the garage. I can get you out during the shift change in 10 minutes. Nicole froze. "What are you talking about?" "I know you found his files," Paolo said quietly. "He's been watching you since before the shooting. Everything, your protection, your relationship, it's all been calculated." The confirmation of her fears made her stomach lurch. "The twins are just down here with Maria. We can get them and be gone before anyone notices. I have a safe house ready." Every instinct screamed this was wrong, but the documents she'd found kept flashing through her mind. Had anything with Marcelo been real? Or was she just another pawn in his war with Castellano? "Why would you help me?" she asked. "Because I've watched him manipulate too many people. You and your daughters deserve better." The twins were indeed with Maria, drowsy from their movie marathon. Paolo smoothly dismissed the nanny, helping Nicole gather the sleepy girls. Through service corridors and backstairs, he led them to a maintenance tunnel she never knew existed. A black SUV waited in a secondary garage. Paolo helped secure the half-asleep twins, while Nicole's heart raced. This felt too easy, too convenient, but her fear of being manipulated again overwhelmed her caution. As they pulled away from the compound, Nicole noticed they were heading east. "The safe house is west," she said, tension rising. "Slight detour to avoid known surveillance routes," Paolo assured her. But the knot in her stomach tightened as familiar landmarks appeared. When she saw the turn toward Castellano's Lake House district, panic surged. She reached for the door handle just as the driver's needle found her neck. The world tilted and blurred. "I'm sorry," Paolo's voice seemed to come from far away. "But orders are orders." Back at the compound, Marcelo stalked through empty corridors, his fury growing with each empty room. The twins' beds were cold, their favorite stuffed animals gone. Security footage showed Paolo leading them through blind spots in the camera coverage, holes that only someone intimate with their protocols would know. In his study, he found Nicole's pendant placed carefully on his desk. The double betrayal cut deep. His most trusted lieutenant and the woman he'd finally opened his heart to, conspiring together. The pain threatened to crack his controlled exterior. His phone buzzed again. Surveillance showing the SUV heading east, Nicole clearly conscious and calm in the passenger seat. To all appearances, she'd left willingly with Paolo. When Nicole's eyes fluttered open, she was lying on familiar silk sheets in Castellano's lake house. Her head felt stuffed with cotton, but panic cleared it quickly when she saw her ex-husband lounging in a nearby chair. "Welcome home, Cara," Luca Castellano smiled, that same charming expression that had once made her knees weak now sending chills down her spine. "The girls are sleeping just next door. The sedative was very mild, I assure you." "Paolo," she managed through dry lips. "Has been my most valuable investment for years," Castellano confirmed. Marcelo's meteoric rise left many resentful lieutenants ripe for recruitment. Paolo was simply the most ambitious. He stood, straightening his immaculate suit. "You've played your part beautifully, making the great Marcello Ricci lower his guard, break his precious vows. The mighty virgin saint undone by love." His laugh was cruel. "Now we'll use that weakness to destroy him completely. First his heart," he traced a finger down her cheek as she recoiled. "Then his empire." Nicole thought of Marcelo finding them gone, how this would confirm his worst fears about trust and love. The pain in her chest had nothing to do with the sedative's lingering effects. Castellano moved toward the door. "Rest now, Cara. Tomorrow we begin dismantling everything your guardian angel built, piece by piece." Dawn painted the lake house windows in cold light as Nicole held her daughters close on the massive bed where they'd huddled all night. Luna's small fingers clutched her mother's blouse while Lily pressed against her other side, both girls unusually quiet after their frightening journey. "Mama, why did Paolo lie?" Luna whispered. Nicole's heart clenched. How could she explain betrayal to 6-year-olds who'd already seen too much? "Sometimes people pretend to be our friends when they're not," she managed. "Like Daddy used to pretend?" Lily asked with childhood directness that made Nicole flinch. Before she could respond, the bedroom door opened. Castellano entered, impeccably dressed as always, his charm dialed to maximum effect. "Good morning, my darlings. I trust you slept well?" The twins pressed closer to Nicole, their instincts warning them despite his pleasant tone. He crossed to the windows, gazing out at the misty lake. "I have quite a story to tell you, Cara, about your precious guardian angel." Across the city, Marcelo stood in his war room, surrounded by maps and surveillance feeds. His usual precisely pressed suit was rumpled from a sleepless night, but his eyes burned with cold focus as he issued rapid commands. "I want every property watched, every route monitored. Call in markers from the Bratva, the Triads, everyone who owes us. No one leaves that lake house without our knowledge." His voice carried the edge that made hardened criminals tremble. Alessandro approached cautiously. "Boss, we found something in Paolo's quarters." He laid out documents showing elaborate forgery preparations. The surveillance files Nicole found, they were planted, dated and altered to make it appear you'd been watching her before the shooting. Marcelo's hands clenched on the table. Paolo had played them perfectly. using Nicole's fears of manipulation against her. But why? The answer hit like ice water, because Castellano knew it was the one thing that would make her run. Back at the lake house, Castellano circled Nicole like a shark. "He's been obsessed with you for years, you know. Saw your photo in my office and couldn't look away. The shooting? All orchestrated to play hero." "You're lying," Nicole said, but doubt crept in as he produced a thick file. "Am I? Look familiar?" He spread photos across the bed, Nicole shopping at parks with the twins outside her apartment. They matched the ones she'd found in Marcelo's safe, but there were more. So many more. He planned everything, Castellano continued smoothly. Waited for the perfect moment to swoop in and save you, the noble protector, the virgin saint. Tell me, Kara, did you enjoy being the one to finally corrupt him? Nicole felt sick, the images before her seeming to confirm her worst fears. But something nagged at her mind. Inconsistencies she was too rattled to piece together yet. In his command center, Marcelo's network hummed with activity. Years of honorable dealings paid off as information flowed in. Guard rotations, delivery schedules, building plans. Each piece brought him closer to Nicole and the twins. "Surveillance shows 30 guards rotating in 8-hour shifts," Alessandro reported. "Heavy presence at all access points, but the West Garden has a blind spot." Marcelo studied the thermal imaging. "He's expecting us to come in force, so we don't. We go subtle, precise. Disable their communications first, then their power. Create chaos they can't coordinate against." Back in her gilded prison, Nicole studied the photos while pretending to rest. Details began jumping out. A store that hadn't opened until after she'd fled Castellano, the twins wearing clothes they'd only gotten last month. The dates were wrong. The entire narrative was wrong. She felt sick for a different reason now. She'd doubted Marcelo, let her past trauma blind her to the truth. Paolo hadn't just played on her fears. He'd manufactured evidence to support them. Castellano strode in, practically glowing with satisfaction. "They've been spotted approaching the perimeter. Time to prepare our welcome." He grabbed Luna roughly, making her cry out. "Come along, Kara. Let's give Marcelo a proper reunion." Nicole's blood ran cold as she realized his true plan. This wasn't just about territory or business. It was about breaking Marcelo completely by forcing him to watch them die. The assault, when it came, was devastating in its precision. Guard posts went silent, one by one. Power failed in rolling blackouts that seemed random but systematically destroyed Castellano's coordination. Smoke bombs created confusion, while small teams slipped through gaps in coverage. In the lake house's grand study, Castellano held Luna against him, gun pressed to her temple as Marcelo entered alone, hands raised. "Let her go!" Marcelo's voice was lethal quiet. "This is between us." "Drop your weapons," Castellano countered. "All of them, or we test how fast you really are." Luna's terrified eyes met Marcelo's. Without hesitation, he began disarming. Gun, knife, backup piece. "Now release her!" "Oh no," Castellano laughed. "First I want you to kneel the great Marcelo Ricci on his knees before me." While attention focused on their standoff, Nicole silently positioned herself near a heavy crystal decanter, waiting for her moment. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the small private chapel where the Ricci and Castellano empires had once worshipped separately. Today, those ancient rivalries dissolved as Nicole walked down the aisle, the twins preceding her in matching flower girl dresses. Marcelo stood at the altar, his usual intimidating presence softened by something that looked suspiciously like tears in his eyes. His entire organization had been shocked when he announced the ceremony would be here, in the same chapel where his parents had married before their massacre. But Nicole understood. This was healing, reclaiming something beautiful from the ashes of his past. The twins scattered rose petals with careful concentration, though Luna got distracted halfway and started tossing them at giggling guests instead. Nicole's heart swelled, watching Marcelo bite back a smile at their antics, his usual stern facade cracking completely when Lily stopped to blow him an enthusiastic kiss. She reached him at the altar, taking in how the formal black suit emphasized his powerful frame, while the tender look in his eyes revealed the gentle heart she'd discovered beneath his dangerous exterior. His hands trembled slightly as he took hers. This feared Mafia boss who could face down rival families without flinching, undone by the simple act of claiming her as his. "You look beautiful," he whispered, voice rough with emotion. The ceremony itself was intimate, with only their closest circle present. Alessandro stood as best man, beaming with pride at the family his boss had finally found. The girls sat in the front row, squirming with barely contained excitement as they watched their mother marry their beloved protector. When it came time for the vows, Marcello's voice carried clearly through the chapel. I promise to cherish you, protect you, honor you, not as a possession, but as my partner in all things. You and our daughters are the light I never thought I'd find in my darkness. Nicole squeezed his hands, her own vows emerging past happy tears. I promise to stand beside you, trust in you, believe in you, not despite who you are, but because of the man I've discovered beneath the power. You've given us safety, love, and a future I never dreamed possible. The reception moved to their newly renovated mansion, the same walls that once witnessed violence, now echoing with music and laughter. Security remained vigilant but unobtrusive, a reminder that their world still held dangers, but they faced them together now. As the evening progressed, Nicole watched Marcello dancing with the twins, one balanced on each shoe as he carefully moved them around the floor. Their giggles drew smiles even from his most hardened lieutenants. "Daddy, spin faster," Luna demanded, and the room fell silent. Marcello froze, staring down at the girls with naked emotion. It was the first time they'd called him that. Lily, always quick to follow her sister's lead, tugged his hand. "Please, Daddy!" Nicole moved closer, heart overflowing as she watched Marcello kneel down to Yab, their level, gathering both girls into a fierce embrace. When he looked up at her, his eyes shone with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Is it okay?" Lily asked innocently. "That we called you Daddy?" "More than okay, Angel." Marcello's voice was hoarse. "It's the greatest gift you could give me." Later that night, after the guests departed and the twins finally succumbed to exhaustion, Nicole found Marcello on their private balcony overlooking the city. The same lights that once signaled danger now sparkled like stars, beautiful rather than threatening. He pulled her close, one hand splaying possessively across her stomach where their newest secret grew, a discovery she'd confirmed just that morning. "I have something to tell you," she whispered. "I know," he smiled against her hair. "I saw the test in our bathroom. A baby." She turned in his arms, studying his reaction. "Are you happy?" "Happy doesn't begin to cover it." His hand caressed her still flat belly. "A child of our blood, alongside the daughters of my heart. A family I never dreamed I'd have." Nicole leaned into his strength, remembering how far they'd come from those first terrifying days of seeking shelter in his compound. "I never thought I'd find this kind of love, one that protects without controlling, desires without possessing." "You're mine to cherish, not to possess," he promised fiercely. "You and our children will never know the fear or loneliness we both survived. This empire," he gestured to the glittering cityscape, "we'll reshape it together, make it something worthy of the legacy we're building." She touched the pendant he'd given her that fateful night, now a symbol of faith rather than betrayal. From survival to power to love, quite a journey for a dangerous man and a runaway mother. "The best journeys are unexpected," he murmured, pulling her closer. "Just like the best families are chosen before they're born." They stood together, watching their city shine beneath the stars, 4 hearts beating beneath his protective embrace, soon to be 5. The feared Ricci name would continue, but transformed by the love that had given its leader back his soul. The night wind carried away the last echoes of celebration, leaving peaceful quiet, broken only by the soft sound of their breathing and the distant hum of the city they now ruled together. Here, in the arms of the man who had risked everything to save her children that first night, Nicole finally felt the peace she'd been seeking since fleeing her first marriage. Marcello pressed a tender kiss to her temple, his touch conveying the depth of emotion he still sometimes struggled to voice. This was what redemption felt like. Not the absence of darkness, but the presence of a light worth protecting at any cost. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they continued merging their worlds and preparing for their growing family. But tonight was for savoring this moment of perfect completion. The dangerous man who had found his heart, the protective mother who had found her strength, and the love that had transformed them both.